Welcome back, 8th graders, to another edition of The Explainer. Get ready, because today we are unpacking one of the most thrilling, absolutely high-stakes stories in all of American history. We're talking about an epic, massive debate that, well, it actually didn't tear our young country apart. It built a much stronger nation. Now, you might be thinking the United States Constitution was just written up, signed, and everyone lived happily ever after, right? Actually, scratch that. The truth is, it was born out of intense disagreement, really passionate arguments, and a monumental clash of ideas. So grab those notebooks and let's get right into it.
Here is our roadmap for today's lesson. We'll start with number 1, iron sharpens iron. 2, the Federalist vision. 3, the anti-Federalist fears. 4, the Bill of Rights. 5, testing your knowledge. And finally, number 6, morality, education, and peace.
All right, starting off with section 1, iron sharpens iron. The power of debate.
So, when you hear the word debate, you might instantly picture people angrily yelling at each other. But is arguing always a bad thing? Absolutely not. Think about this famous proverb: as iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another. That's Proverbs 27:17, and it perfectly describes the founding of the United States. Think about a blacksmith for a second. If you want to make a blade sharper, you don't go rubbing it against something soft, right? You grind it against hard metal. Sparks fly. There's a lot of friction. But the end result? It's a tool that is stronger, sharper, and just far more effective. And you know, the exact same thing is true for human minds and political ideas. Healthy debate literally tests our ideas, forces us to defend our positions, and ultimately refines them into something much, much better. Which brings us to section 2. The Federalist vision, building a strong nation.
Let's go ahead and introduce the first group of debaters in our story, the Federalists. These guys were basically the architects of a post-Revolutionary War nation, and they realized that without an incredibly strong foundation, the whole house was just going to collapse. Now pay close attention to these 3 crucial names: Alexander Hamilton, James Madison, and John Jay. You are absolutely going to need to remember these leaders for your upcoming assignments, so definitely write those down. These 3 didn't just argue loudly, they organized. They wrote this brilliant series of essays called the Federalist Papers to explain, justify, and really passionately defend this new constitution to the public.
Now, I want you to think about this for a second. Why did the Federalists want a strong central government so badly? What were they seeing in the country that made them believe a powerful national authority was literally the only way forward?
Well, the crucial point is this. The system they had before the Constitution, which was called the Articles of Confederation, was just way too weak. It simply couldn't solve national problems. So the Federalists argued that a strong central government was absolutely necessary to unite the separate states into one cohesive nation, to actually be able to enforce laws and to handle challenges that the old system couldn't touch. They believed that without a strong central authority, our young nation was going to be super vulnerable to chaos and foreign threats. They were all about national stability and building a solid framework.
But moving to section 3, the anti-Federalist fears, protecting individual freedom. Because remember, iron sharpens iron, right? You need that friction. So enter the anti-Federalists. Now, why on earth would anyone oppose a unified, strong nation? Were they just trying to be difficult? No, not at all. Their fears were deep. They were valid, and historically, they were incredibly important. So what exactly worried the anti-Federalists about this shiny new constitution that the Federalists were pushing? If order and national strength sounds so great, what was the downside?
Well, you have to remember, the anti-Federalists had literally just fought a brutal war to escape the tyranny of a super powerful British king. So when they looked at this new constitution, they saw a massive red flag. They deeply feared that it was going to concentrate way too much power in a central government, and they believed that handing over that much power would inevitably endanger individual liberties and totally crush state power. They weren't against the nation, not at all. They were just fundamentally pro-freedom. And because of that, they demanded written guarantees, a Bill of Rights, to protect personal freedoms from any potential government overreach.
And that sets up this ultimate, brilliant historical showdown. On one side, you have the Federalists demanding a strong central government and national order. And on the flip side, the anti-Federalists fiercely defending state power and individual rights. This right here is the friction. These are those 2 pieces of iron grinding against each other. And honestly, for a minute there, it looked like a total stalemate that could completely ruin the chance for a new government.
So, how do we fix it? That brings us to section 4, the Bill of Rights, the Great Compromise. This is the synthesis of our story, where the sparks of debate finally cool down and forge something entirely new and enduring. So, how did the Bill of Rights resolve this massive debate? How did these two completely different, passionately opposed viewpoints actually find a way to agree and move forward together? The answer is honestly pretty beautiful in its simplicity. They actually listened to each other. The addition of the Bill of Rights guaranteed those essential, basic human freedoms, and that satisfied the deep, deep concerns of the Anti-Federalists. In return, the Anti-Federalists agreed to let the Constitution take effect, which granted the Federalists the strong national framework they knew we needed to survive. Let this really sink in for a second. Without the Federalists, we wouldn't have a Constitution to hold us together. But without the Anti-Federalists pushing back so hard, we wouldn't have our fundamental freedoms protected in writing. It took both of them.
And this is the very definition of compromise, an agreement reached by adjusting opposing demands. The Federalists agreed to add the Bill of Rights immediately after ratification to win over their opponents. This proves that healthy democracies don't just tolerate discussion and disagreement, they absolutely rely on them. This is the ultimate proof that iron really does sharpen iron.
All right, let's see what you remember. Section 5, Testing Your Knowledge, Homework Review.
Let's shift gears for a quick, rapid-fire review to make sure you are totally prepped for your homework. Question 1. Name 2 Federalist leaders. Well, we explicitly listed 3 key authors earlier in this explainer: Hamilton, Madison, and Jay. So definitely jot those down. Now, question 2 asks for 2 anti-Federalist leaders. We actually didn't list specific names for them today, which means you are going to have to crack open those textbooks to find folks like Patrick Henry or George Mason. Consider that your special mission for tonight. Moving right along to questions 3 and 4. Why did Federalists support the Constitution, and why did Anti-Federalists oppose it? Remember that epic head-to-head clash we just looked at? The Federalists were all about national order, uniting the states and fixing those weak Articles of Confederation. The Anti-Federalists? They were terrified of tyranny and totally obsessed with protecting individual liberties and state power. Basically, it was order versus liberty.
And finally, question 5. How did the Bill of Rights help win ratification? This all comes down to that magic vocabulary word we just defined: compromise. The Bill of Rights was the bridge. It guaranteed personal freedoms, which calmed the anti-federalist fears and allowed them to finally vote yes and ratify the whole thing.
Okay, before we go, let's look at Section 6, Morality, Education, and Peace, the HeroesMart philosophy. I want to bring this down to a more personal level and look at how this applies to who you are becoming, specifically through the lens of the HeroesMart Academy philosophy. In Romans 8:6-7, there is this profound promise. It promises peace of mind to everyone who keeps his or her mind spiritual. This right here is the absolute bedrock of the Godly Learner Series framework. Because, peace of mind isn't something you get just by memorizing historical facts or acing a history test. It really comes from where you anchor your heart and your spirit. Think about our history lesson today. A nation needs both government power to function and moral rights to protect its people, right? Otherwise, it just destroys itself. Well, the HeroesMart philosophy argues that the exact same thing is true for you as an individual. Education without morality will hurt. I mean, what is the point of being brilliant, getting straight A's, and being highly educated if you lack the moral compass to make good choices? The framework suggests that education all by itself just isn't enough. You need the balance of biblical wisdom to guide that intelligence, just like the Constitution needed the Bill of Rights. So, I'm going to leave you with this final and honestly most important question of the day. As you learn, as you grow your mind, and as you engage in debates just like the founders did, will you choose to intertwine your education with biblical morality so you can experience true peace? Finding that balance might just be the key to everything. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep those minds sharp, and I will see you next time.